Hey, before we get into this video, I just want to give a little bit of a content warning. This series does contain gore, violence, and it's a little bit raunchy. So, if you're a kid, screw off. If you're an adult, then continue watching. Yeah, thank you. Is that another villainess story? Oh man, wow. Breaking new ground, oh man. Alright, whatever. Hey, how's it going? Yes, I'm talking about another random story that I don't know, remembered. um, Today we have Roxana, or the way to protect the female lead's older brother. Whatever. I believe this is more commonly used for the novel. I think there's a novelization of this. And this is just a webtoon or webcomic version of that novelization, most likely to get more eyes on said novel. Yeah, I don't know. I guess before we begin, I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed and whatever. Not a lot of people watch my other videos, so I don't know, you're making me sad. But yeah, I don't know, whatever. Leave a comment down below if you have any other series you want me to talk about. Alright, moving on. Initial rating, 8. It's pretty good. I like it. How would I describe this series? Well, it has some edge to it. It definitely has some edge. Not that that's bad. That's fine. You know, little edge is good. You know, here and there, right? Yeah. All right. So I'm not gonna spoil anything for this. I'm not going to dive really that deep either. I mean, I think I read somewhere in the ballpark of 40-something chapters for this video, so it's not like I even know everything that happens. But what will I say about the series? Well, first of all, I just want to get this off my chest right off the bat. I really like the art. It's really good. I don't know. It's super it's very detailed. I think a good example, look at the eye. Oh wow, so detailed. Little butterflies. Oh man, I love it. It just looks so good. I know it's edgy, but I just can't look away. So much edge, but it's so good. You know, having like the red backgrounds, things like that. Like, oh man, I love it. So that's like, yes, love the art. Love the art. As far as story goes, it's all right. She's reincarnated as the villain. He has to protect the female lead's brother to, you know, stop her from dying in the original plot. I've seen it. It's not necessarily unique. Having like a character reincarnated as a villain and then getting involved in some way in like the heroine's life to keep things going. It's not like super standout. I think the delivery of the story is a little different than a lot of other ones I've seen. I guess like the biggest thing is like she's really a villain. Like she will kill people and, you know, do villainous things. Yeah, I mean, like it is not a it's not like a light-hearted villain thing where like, oh, they're not really a villain. No, like no, it's definitely full-on villain. I mean, it's, you know, I'm not saying she's like the epitome of evil or anything, but I think the general gist is her kind of playing into that role of a villain to survive in a family of villains. Which, you know, I've seen something similar, but I will say like this one definitely goes a lot harder into the like violence category. Which I mean it's different. I would say like the general, just like if you don't want to see that, you know, more violent side of things, I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to recommend this, but you know, whatever. I don't mind it. Every now and then, you know, getting like a super brutal story. I wouldn't say there's a lot of depth really to the story itself. Like I think this is more of like a just like a fun read. I often classify like the different things that I read in terms of like, is it a really good story? Is the art really good? Is it just for like, you could jump in when you want and read a chapter, then leave? And I would say this is more of like a, it's just for fun. It's something that you're not going to go into expecting anything super deep. It's not going to be your favorite story of all time, but it's just like, oh, that's new. That's that's a little, I shouldn't even say new. That's just a little different, right? I wouldn't say anything in the story is okay, I wouldn't say anything in the story is necessarily new. I would just say it's done a little differently than most stories, and has really good art, which makes it for a package that's very fun. Not necessarily something that I would say is like, I'm not going out of my out of my way to say this is like kosher. Like I'm not saying, hey, if you're 12, this should be the series you watch. But I don't know. But a lot of like the violence and stuff is more like edge. I wouldn't say it's like the kind of violence that is there for a good reason. It's a lot of edge. It's clearly like I feel like the author just really wanted to go for some edgy, storytelling, violence, things like that. I don't know. Here, like there's certain characters like we saw the main character, Roxana. I forgot to mention this is an isekai. Yes, it is an isekai. Of course, yes, reincarnated as a villain. Blah blah blah. Of course, it's an isekai. I don't think the isekai thing is really like that important. It's more so just like a catalyst for the rest of the story. It's not really something that comes up throughout that much. It's mostly just a catalyst for like why she wouldn't kill the male, like the female lead's brother right off the rip, right? It's kind of just like, okay, here's the catalyst. I think you could have done it differently, like, maybe she is just a little bit more kind than her relatives and is kind of just putting on a show and decides she wants to save that guy because she thinks maybe he can help her in the future or something. Like, I think you could have done that, but it's okay. I don't hate the use of an isekai here. I don't hate it, right? I think it loses a couple of points for that just because it's generic, but it's not necessarily like generic in a bad way. It's just plain. Yeah, I mean, so we have her. Then this is one of her brothers, and here's the sign you can tell something's edgy if they wear fingerless gloves. If you see black fingerless gloves, and then you see them wearing like these jackets over their side, they have like the straps. This is full on, This is edge. This is edge central. This is going to be edgy just by looking at that. But again, I'm not necessarily saying that that's like a problem. It's just you want to know what you're getting into. Like this is one of her other brothers. Look at this. You could tell the eyes, the long hair. It's all scraggly. Like the officer sort of suit and things like that. It's edge. It's edge, and I don't want to get that wrong. And I do think that kind of prevents it from going much higher than an 8 because it is way too far in the edge. But it's every once in a while it's fun to have a little edge, and the art's so good that I can put up with it. Just for the sake of a little, a somewhat satisfying story, I could put up with a little edge. This is the male, like the female lead's older brother. Yeah, he's all scarred up, blah blah blah. The yellow eyes, super generic, silver hair. You see it everywhere. And yes, this is a little bit raunchy, right? You can see the little, you know what I mean? It's a little raunch. Again, I would not recommend this for a kid. It's more so like it's one of those things where like if you could block out all of the edge and raunch, it's a fun little read, a good time waster. Yeah, I mean overall thoughts. Well, you know, I kind of like the real villain idea. Like they're actually a bad person and they're a real villain, and you know they do villainous things just for the sake of being a villain. Like there's not really much of an explanation, like why her brother or somebody would be bloodthirsty. Like no, they're just bad people. And I think like yeah, sometimes that's like a breath of fresh air. You know, they're just genuinely just not good people, and that's just the end of it. Um, so I think that's a little fresh. I like the art, super good, love it. I think that's probably the best aspect. Um, it's super edge, which I mean could be a positive or a negative. I mean if you're like a, you know, I don't know, an edge lord, maybe you'll enjoy this a lot. But I think I'm a little old for that. I'm past the Tokyo Ghoul stage of my life, so I don't think it really appeals to me that much. Um, yeah, I mean, really, I think the main takeaways would just be, yeah, the art's really good. I like the idea of like an actual villain. It's not just like a, you know, they just say it's a villain and it's like, oh well, it must be, and it's like, no, no, she's a villain. Um, I like, you know, I mean, the designs along with the art. I think like they pick pretty good designs. It's a little generic. That's probably why I wouldn't give it like a 9 or a 10 because it's kind of like, you know, there's a lot of edge. It's pretty generic. Like there's not a lot of plot points where I'm like, wow, that's so different. Um, I think a lot of the spice comes in with the main character, like, you know, the whole, you know, her abilities and, you know, how she acts, the attitude. I think that's pretty fun. Um, yeah, I mean, I think an 8's pretty fair, with all the edge and kind of generic storytelling and, you know, not a lot of, like, super deep substance going on. I feel like an 8's pretty fair, because, you know, surface level everything's pretty interesting to look at, and it's like a fun read, but it's not a deeper read, and I don't think I'd want to read it over and over again or anything. It's more so just like a generic story that's told relatively well, so it's kind of fun, with really good art. So it's just you know, it's a satisfying little read. I just wouldn't necessarily say it's something incredible. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't know, like, comment, subscribe. I don't know if you want me to review anything else. Let me know. Yeah, I'll see ya.